Hello and welcome back. You're watching Parry This. Today we are diverging from our recent course and taking a look at the Teutonic Knights, my first video in a series based on and around the Crusades. So let's dive on in and start learning about this ancient order of knights. So, the Teutonic Order, otherwise known as Teutonic Knights, formerly known as the House of the Hospitallers of St. Mary of the Teutons in Jerusalem. In German, Deutscher Orden, or Deutscher Ritter-Orden, or, now this one is a mouthful, Haus der Ritter des Hospitals Sankt Marien der Deutschen zu Jerusalem. Wow, German sure is a fun language. They were a religious order that played a major role in Eastern Europe in the late Middle Ages, and that underwent various changes in organization and residence, from its founding in 1189 all the way up to present day. The founding city of this order was Acre, in the Holy Land, back in the Third Crusade from 1189 to 1291. Their other major residences include Marienburg, Prussia, which was the center of their role as a military principality from 1309 to 1525. Then Mergentheim, Württemberg, Germany, which is where they moved to after the loss of Prussia, where they remained from 1525 till 1809. Finally, Vienna, which is where the order gathered the remains of its revenues and survives purely as a hospital order from 1834 to this day. From 1189 to 1190, when crusading forces were besieging Acre, some German merchants from Bremen and Lübeck formed a fraternity to nurse the sick there. After the capture of Acre in 1191, the fraternity took over a hospital in the town and began to describe itself as the Hospital of St. Mary of the German House in Jerusalem. Pope Clement III approved it, and it adopted a rule like that of the original Hospital of St. John of Jerusalem, i.e. the Knights of Malta. The death of Hohenstaufen Emperor Henry VI in 1197, when he was planning a great expedition to Palestine, caused an important change. A number of German crusaders who had arrived in Palestine decided to return home. In order to fill the gap, the German princes and bishops, together with King Amalric II of Jerusalem, in 1198 militarized the fraternity, making it a religious order of knights. The new order was put under a monastic and military rule, like that of the Templars. It received privileges from Pope Celestine III and Innocent III, and extensive grants of land, not only in the Kingdom of Jerusalem, but also in Germany and elsewhere. Innocent III in 1205 granted the Teutonic Knights the use of the white habit with a black cross. The Knights left Palestine forever towards the end of the Crusades, with the final fall of the country to Islam in 1291. Meanwhile, under the leadership of the Grand Master Hermann von Salza, who reigned from 1210 to 1239, the Teutonic Knights had already begun transferring their main center of activity from the Middle East to Eastern Europe. The Order's first European enterprises started in Hungary in 1211, when King Andrew II invited a group of the Teutonic Knights to protect his Transylvanian borderland against the Cumans by colonizing it and converting its people to Christianity. The Order was then granted extensive rights of autonomy, but the Knights' demands became so excessive that they were expelled from Hungary in 1225. By that time, however, a new opportunity was opening. A Polish Duke, Conrad of Mosavia, with lands on the lower reaches of the Vistula River, needed help against the pagan Prussians. Hermann von Salza proceeded carefully in order to avoid a repetition of what the order had experienced in Transylvania. He already enjoyed the confidence of the Hohenstaufen Emperor Frederick II, whom he had served as a diplomat. So when Conrad made his offer, Hermann in 1226 obtained from Frederick the so-called Golden Bull of Rimini as a legal basis for the settlement. By this charter, Frederick confirmed to Hermann and to the order not only the lands to be granted by Conrad, but also those that the knights were to conquer from the Prussians. Later, in 1234, Hermann also secured privileges from Pope Gregory IX, which can be regarded as the second foundation charter of the Order's Prussian state. The papacy was ready to accept the Order's current and future conquests as the property of the Holy See, and to grant them back to the Order in perpetual tenure. In 1233, led by the Landmeister, otherwise known as the provincial leader, Hermann Balk, and using an army of volunteer laymen recruited mainly from central Germany, the Teutonic Knights began the conquest of Prussia. During the next 50 years, having advanced from the lower Vistula River to the lower Neman River, and having exterminated most of the native Prussian population, especially during the major rebellion of 1261 to 1283, the order firmly established its control over Prussia. Although the order gave 1/3 of the conquered territory to the church and granted a large degree of autonomy to the newly developing towns in the area, it easily became the dominant power in Prussia. It worked to develop the region by building castles, by importing German peasants to settle in populated areas, by bestowing substantial estates on German and Polish nobles who became vassals of the order, and by monopolizing the lucrative Prussian grain trade, particularly after 1263, when the Pope allowed the knights, who had previously been bound by a vow of poverty, to engage directly in trading activities. In 1237, less than 2 years before Hermann von Salza's death, the Order of the Brothers of the Sword, also known as Schwertbrüderorden, also known as the Knights of the Sword or the Livonian Order, founded in 1202, was made a branch of the Teutonic Order, its head becoming Landmeister of Livonia. The Teutonic Order, however, never established such effective control over these northern provinces as it did over Prussia. By 1309, when the Order's Grand Master established his residence at Marienburg, the Order had created a strong feudal state that governed not only Prussia, but also the eastern Baltic lands of the Livonian Knights, Pomerania or Eastern Pomerania, including the city of Danzig, and the lands in central and southern Germany. During the following century, the Order demonstrated its power by continually, although unsuccessfully, trying to conquer and convert Lithuania, by actively protecting the merchant cities of the Hanseatic League, and by expanding its territories through purchase and conquest. The Order's expansion and increasing power, however, aroused the hostility of both Poland, whose access to the Baltic Sea had been cut off, and Lithuania, whose territory the Knights continued to menace despite Lithuania's conversion to Christianity in 1387. Consequently, when a rebellion broke out against the Order in Samogitia in 1408, Poland and Lithuania joined forces and decisively defeated the Knights at Grunwald in 1410. Although the Order was compelled to give up only Samogitia and the Dobrzin land by the Treaty of Torun in 1411, its military might was broken. Subsequently, its authority and financial position also rapidly declined. It was unable to withstand the wars that Poland continued to wage, and when its own vassals joined the Poles in the 13 Years' War from 1454 to 1466, the Order was finally defeated. In 1466, it ceded Pomerania, both banks of the Vistula, and the bishopric of Warmia to Poland in the Treaty of Torun in 1466. The Order retained the rest of Prussia, but its Grand Master became a vassal of the Polish king for that territory. Furthermore, the formerly exclusively German Order was obliged to accept Polish members. The Teutonic Order's rule in Prussia came to an end in 1525, when the Grand Master Albert, under Protestant influence, dissolved the Order there and accepted its territory as a secular duchy for himself under Polish sovereignty. In 1526, a new Grand Master, Walter of Cronenberg, fixed his residence at Mergentheim in Franconia. After the loss of Prussia, the Order still retained in Europe several territories, but in 1558 the Livonian territory was lost, partitioned between Russia, Sweden, and Poland-Lithuania. In 1580, the secession of Utrecht meant the loss of territory in the Low Countries. In the late 17th century, Louis XIV secularized its possessions in France. In 1801, the Treaty of Lunéville stripped the Order of its German possessions on the left bank of the Rhine. In 1809, the Emperor Napoleon, at war with Austria, declared the Order to be dissolved and distributed most of its remaining lands among other principalities. By the end of the Napoleonic Wars, the Teutonic Order retained only small territories in the Austrian domains and Tyrol. In 1834, the Austrian Emperor re-established the Order in Vienna as an ecclesiastical institution, reserving the dignity of Grand Master for an Archduke of his house. New statutes issued from 1839 to 1840 limited the Knights to charitable and pastoral activities, and limited the Order's sisters to nursing. In 1871, Pope Pius IX approved new rules for the priests of the Order. When the Habsburg Empire collapsed in 1918, the last imperial Grand Master, Archduke Maximilian, gave way to a priest as Grand Master for the first time. A new rule of November 27, 1929, emphasized religious discipline. Currently, the headquarters of their order are in Vienna, where it maintains a church and an archive of the order. Branch houses also exist in Bavaria, Hesse, and the Italian Tyrol. Well, that does it for a wide overview of the Teutonic Order. Sure, they may not be as famous in popular culture as the Templar Order, but I figured they would be a fantastic place to start in my video series focusing on the Crusades. So, what would you like me to cover next? Let me know in the comment section down there, and I will see what I can do. Thanks for watching, and have a nice day. I'll see you next time.